world of construction management, decisions are the foundation of every successful project. From choosing the right materials to managing unforeseen challenges on site, every choice you make can either build towards success or lead to setbacks. And that is what we are aiming to discuss to you today. Good day everyone, we are Group 2. I am Mark Ayan Cadillona, and together with Carlos Bolano, Maria Antoinette Caballas, and Jana Peña, we are going to talk about Chapter 2 of Max Fajardo's Project Construction Management entitled Decision Making. Decision making is the fundamental process of management. Decision making is critical because most managerial efforts are tied to making decisions. However, decisions don't always unfold as planned. It's important to understand who makes these decisions. Executives are primarily responsible as their position and authority allows them to make choices that impact the entire organization. While decision making is a significant task, it's only a fraction of what managers do. Yet this fraction is essential as it defines their role. So managers spend a lot of their time making decisions, but not necessarily all of it. Ultimately, making decisions is a manager's specific responsibility. Now, moving on to the concept of effective decisions. A decision is essentially a judgment, a choice between alternatives. It's rarely a clear-cut choice between right or wrong. It's often a choice between what might be almost right and what might be wrong. Now, the key to effective decision making is the availability of alternatives. Without alternatives, there's no real judgment. Effective managers know that they start with opinions, which are untested hypotheses, and then test these against reality. An effective manager also knows that it's not enough to simply make a decision, it has to lead to work and action. If it doesn't, it remains just a good intention. Additionally, effective decisions comes from the clash of divergent opinions and competing alternatives, which is why managers encourage differing opinions. However, those who voice opinions must also take responsibility for defining what factual findings should be sought. Moreover, the main task of a manager is not administration, but it is the making of policy, the making of the right decision. An important rule in decision making is that a decision should be made should not be made unless there's disagreement, because it's a sign that alternatives have been considered. Finally, there's one last question that the effective decision maker asks. Is the decision really necessary? Because, sometimes the best option is to do just nothing. Finally, let's discuss what defines an effective manager. Effective managers are expected to make decisions that significantly impact the organization, its performance, and its results. However, they don't make a large number of decisions. Instead, they focus on making the important ones, ensuring they're made with the highest level of understanding. They aim to find the constants in a situation and aren't overly concerned with making quick decisions, meaning they prioritize depth over speed. Effective managers also know that decisions should be based on principles and the merits of each case. Likewise, they also understand that decision making often involves distinguishing between the right and wrong compromises. They know that the most challenging part of decision making isn't the decision itself, but how to implement it effectively. Additionally, an effective manager insists on having alternatives to choose from, as failing to consider them indicates a closed mind. Furthermore, once a decision is made, they constantly monitor its outcomes to ensure that the desired objectives are being achieved. If they have not achieved it, they are prepared to review the situation to identify the following. Number 1, an error in the actual implementation, and number 2, an error in calculation.
Today, I will discuss the systematic process of decision making, a fundamental aspect of ensuring success in both construction methods and project management. Effective decision making relies on a clear and organized sequence of steps that guide us toward the most appropriate solutions. The decision-making process comprises 7 essential steps. First is to identify the problem. This involves determining the root cause rather than focusing on surface-level symptoms. Second is to specify objectives and decision criteria. To establish clear goals and the standards by which options will be evaluated. Third is to develop alternatives to generate a range of potential solutions. Fourth is to analyze and compare alternatives, evaluating each alternative's advantages and disadvantages, often benefits from the use of mathematical or statistical techniques. Fifth is to select the best alternative, choosing the most effective and feasible option. This will depend on the objectives of the decision maker and the criteria that are being used to evaluate alternatives. Six is to implement the chosen alternative, to put the decision into action. This simply means carrying out the actions indicated by the chosen alternative. So if the alternative selected is to do nothing, no action will be required to implement. Lastly is to monitor results, assessing the outcome to confirm it meets the desired objectives. The effectiveness of this process depends on how well each step is addressed. A critical point is that solutions must target the underlying problem, not just its symptoms. Let's now focus on how decisions are evaluated and the importance of generating alternatives. Once a problem is identified, the next critical step is to establish the criteria that will guide us in assessing potential solutions. Decision criteria are essential as they serve as the benchmarks for evaluating proposed solutions. In civil engineering projects, common criteria include: first, capital; second, time; third, profits; fourth, maintenance; next is return on investment; next is increase in costs; and lastly, risks. The decision maker's ability to handle problems effectively often relies on their success in identifying stable and creative alternatives. This process requires both experience and deep understanding of the situation at hand. Effort spent in identifying alternatives is an investment that can lead to significant benefits. The more carefully alternatives are developed, the higher the chances of making a sound decision. One alternative that is often overlooked is to do nothing. While it may seem counterintuitive, choosing to do nothing can sometimes be the most logical choice. It requires no resources, no time for implementation, and importantly, no additional costs. This approach can be particularly effective when the problem resolves itself or when intervention could create more complications. In project management, if a team member proposes an unnecessary system upgrade, doing nothing might be the best decision to avoid unnecessary expenses and disruptions. Moving forward, let's discuss why managers often insist on encouraging disagreement before finalizing decisions. While disagreement may seem counterproductive, it plays a crucial role in ensuring well-rounded and effective decision-making. There are three main reasons why disagreement is valuable in the decision-making process. First is it is only the safeguard against the decision makers becoming the hostage of the organization. This means preventing bias and influence. A decision maker is constantly surrounded by stakeholders, each with their own interests. These individuals may genuinely believe their perspectives are best, but they could unintentionally bias the decision maker. Managing disagreement ensures that the decision maker is not held captive by one-sided views and can make more balanced choices. Second, this disagreement alone can provide alternatives to a decision. Disagreement challenges the initial decision and helps develop alternatives. Without alternatives, a decision is as risky as a desperate gamble. It may fail either because it was flawed from the start or because circumstances change. Having pre-considered alternatives provides a safety net, enabling the decision maker to adapt effectively if the primary decision becomes inoperative. Lastly, disagreement is needed to stimulate the imagination, but imagination of the high level is not an abundant supply. High-level imagination is vital for creative solutions, but it often needs stimulation to be fully realized. Disagreement, when reasoned and well documented, is a powerful way to spark innovation. It challenges assumptions, encourages critical thinking, and brings dormant ideas to life, ensuring that creative potential is fully utilized. Effective managers organize disagreement because this will protect them against being taken in by seemingly honest but false or incomplete information. Effective managers understand the importance of structured disagreement as a means of challenging and verifying information. This helps ensure that decisions are not based on misleading or incomplete data. Effective managers know that there are fools around and that there are mischief makers. They are also aware that not all contributors have the necessary expertise or good intentions, which makes scrutinizing inputs through disagreement even more essential. Every decision is like a surgery. It is an intervention into a system and therefore carries with it the risk of shock. Decisions like surgical procedures involve intervening in complex systems, inherently introducing the possibility of unforeseen consequences or disruptions. There is a saying that there is no inherent reasons why medicines should taste horrible, but effective ones do. Similarly, there is no inherent reason why decision should be distasteful, but most effective ones are. Individual decision makers, like individual surgeons, differ in their styles. One has to make decision when a condition is likely to degenerate if nothing is done. Timely decisions are crucial when inaction could lead to worsening conditions or missed opportunities. Effective decision makers compare the risk of action to the risk of inaction. They assess both the potential downsides of taking action and the consequences of not acting, aiming to find the best possible balance between two risks. Even with the best intentions, managers sometimes make poor decisions. While unforeseeable circumstances can play a role, poor outcomes are more commonly linked to specific shortcomings in the decision-making process. Some of the key reasons for poor decisions include errors in the decision process. Managers may skip critical steps or fail to invest enough effort in thoroughly completing each stage before moving forward. This might be due to a preference for making quick decisions or an underestimation of the impact of poor choices. Second is bounded rationality. This term describes the limitations managers face due to constraints like time, costs, technology, human capabilities, and incomplete information. Third is sub-optimization. Sub-optimization occurs when individual departments or teams focus on solutions that are ideal for their own needs but fail to consider the overall organization's objectives. Fourth is ego and overconfidence. Managers who experience a streak of successes may develop a sense of infallibility. They begin to believe they cannot make mistakes, failing to recognize that some successes may have been due to luck rather than skill. Lastly is unwillingness to admit mistakes. Some managers struggle to acknowledge when a decision is wrong. They may delay corrective actions or avoid making necessary decisions, compounding the problem over time. Recognizing these reasons for poor decisions help managers avoid common pitfalls. By remaining humble, thorough, and focused on the bigger picture, decision makers can improve outcomes and mitigate risks effectively. Now, let us look at the 5 key elements in the decision-making process. These elements ensure that decisions are well-grounded, purposeful, and actionable. The process of decision-making involves 5 critical elements. First is determining if the problem is generic. First, identify whether the issue is a recurring one that can be addressed by applying a rule or principle, or if it requires a unique, case-specific solution. Second, defining specifications or boundary conditions. It clearly outlines the requirements the solution must meet, including what the decision must accomplish, the objectives it needs to achieve, the minimum goals it must attain, and lastly, the conditions it must satisfy. Third, focusing on the solution that satisfies specifications. Before considering compromises or adjustments, think through what is objectively right, the solution that aligns fully with the defined specifications and goals. Fourth is building action into the decision. Ensure the decision incorporates a clear plan of action. A decision without actionable steps is incomplete and unlikely to succeed. Lastly, implementing feedback mechanisms. Introduce a system to monitor and evaluate the decision's outcomes. Feedback allows testing the validity and effectiveness of the decision and enables adjustments as necessary. By following these 5 elements, decision makers can systematically address problems, align solutions with goals, and ensure decisions are both practical and effective.
For the topic budgeting the time, I will be sharing insights which highlights the importance of managing the scarcest and most valuable resource, which is time. Effective managers understand that time is the limiting factor in all accomplishments. In the book Construction Management, it emphasizes that a manager doesn't begin with their work. They start by understanding where their time goes. For this topic, I'll be covering 4 key aspects of time management: time as a resource, working with people, the impact of overstaffing, and meetings as a time waster. Let's start with time as a resource. Time is described as unique because it is inelastic. No matter how much demand increases, we cannot produce more time. It is perishable. Yesterday's time is gone forever and cannot be stored. And lastly, it is irreplaceable. Thus, everything we do requires time, and nothing can substitute for it. Unfortunately, most people take time for granted, failing to recognize its critical importance, thus failing to manage it effectively. As the book points out, unless time is managed, nothing else can be managed. For managers, this means starting with time, not tasks, and treating time as a foundation for all accomplishments. Next, let's talk about time and people. The book highlights that much of a manager's time is spent working with others. However, this can be both productive and wasteful. Here's why. First, by nature, people consume time, and often they waste it. Second, mixing personal and professional relationships increase interactions, leaving less time for meaningful work. And lastly, in larger organizations, decisions about people become even more time consuming, and rushed decisions often lead to mistakes. The key takeaway is that while people are integral to work, managing interactions effectively is crucial to avoid unnecessary time loss. As managers, we must ensure that time spent with people leads to results, not distractions. Next, overstaffing is another critical issue tied to time wastage. According to the book, overstaffing forces managers to spend excessive time resolving conflicts, disputes, and coordination problems. Second, when there are too many people, they may begin to get in each other's way, reducing overall productivity. And lastly, managers who spend more time on human relations issues than on achieving results are often dealing with an overstaffed organization. Instead of enhancing performance, overstaffing can hinder it, making time management even more challenging. And finally, let's look at meetings as a common time waster. The book explains that meetings often indicate poor organizational structure arising from unclear responsibilities or ineffective communication. While meetings are sometimes necessary to pool knowledge, excessive or undirected meetings prevent actual work from getting done. As the book says, one either meets or one works. Certainly, one cannot do both at the same time. Purposeful, focused meetings should be the exception, not the rule. If managers find themselves spending a quarter or more of their time in meetings, it's a sign of malorganization that needs correction. To summarize, effective time management involves treating time as an irreplaceable resource and managing it intentionally. Balancing time spent working with people to ensure productive interactions, and avoiding overstaffing to minimize inefficiencies and distractions. And lastly, keeping meetings purposeful and limited, ensuring they contribute to results rather than hindering them. The overarching lesson is that effective time management isn't just about doing things faster. It's about doing the right things with the time we have. Let's now move on to the next topic entitled First Things First. This section emphasizes a fundamental principle for success: concentration. By focusing on priorities and timing, managers can maximize their effectiveness despite the challenges of limited time. The secret to effectiveness is concentration. Effective managers focus on one task at a time and always start with the most important work. Why? Because there are always more valuable contributions to be made than there is time to make them. Managers must make deliberate choices to prioritize what matters most. However, time is not infinite. No matter how well a manager organizes their day, a significant portion of their time will always be out of their control. This creates an ongoing time deficit, meaning there's never enough time for everything. That's why prioritization is crucial. Without it, the most important tasks may never be addressed. Timing also plays a critical role in success. In the book, it makes a powerful point. What one postpones, one actually abandons. If you delay important tasks, they often don't get done at all. Putting off work that should be done today can lead to frustration and ultimately failure. Acting promptly and at the right time ensures progress and avoids missed opportunities. In summary, the key to effectiveness lies in concentrating on one task at a time, prioritizing what's most important to accomplish first, and recognizing the risks of postponing tasks and taking timely action. By practicing these principles, managers can overcome the time deficit and achieve meaningful results.
Employee discipline. Discipline is an essential tool that management uses to guide and regulate employee behavior. Its purpose is not to punish or seek retribution, but rather to encourage employees to follow the organization's prescribed rules and standards. By implementing discipline, companies aim to prevent any actions that violates policies, ensuring a harmonious and efficient workplace. Let's explore its purpose and dimensions. The primary purpose of discipline is to protect both the organization and its employees by ensuring that everyone adheres to company rules. It acts as a preventive measure, reducing the likelihood of violations. This ensures a balanced approach where the company's interests and employees' welfare are safeguarded. Rather than being punitive, discipline seeks to guide and improve behavior. So there are three dimensions of discipline. First is awareness. It educates employees about proper behavior, attitudes, and conduct while performing their jobs. This clarity reduces misunderstanding and errors. Second is efficiency. Discipline helps create a work environment where collaboration and productivity are optimized. When employees follow rules, the workplace becomes more efficient. Lastly is correction. Discipline is a means of reforming employees who may have violated rules. The goal is to guide them back to acceptable standards rather than penalizing them outright. The ultimate objective of discipline is educate and reform. Employees need to understand that rules and regulations are enforced not to punish but to benefit everyone. When employees are aware of behavioral and performance standards, they contribute to a better work environment. By focusing on correction instead of punishment, discipline aims to guide employees toward improvement and success, rather than creating fear or resentment. Now for the principles of discipline. So there are 16 principles of discipline. So first is disciplinary action should not be taken unless there is an obvious necessity for it. Second, the reason for disciplinary action should be made clear. Third, give the man a chance to present his side of the story and do not argue. Fourth, there should be no favoritism or discrimination in any disciplinary action. Fifth, reprimand should be given as soon as possible after the occurrence of the act. Right timing is important, but first have all the facts. Sixth is forgive and forget. When disciplinary action has been given, supervisor should resume a normal attitude toward the offending employee. Seventh is never discipline anyone in the presence of others. 8. The discipline that is inflicted must be just, but sufficiently severe to meet the requirements of the situation. 9. Disciplinary measures should be applied by a immediate superior of the employee affected, rather than by someone other higher executive. 10. Negative disciplinary action is generally ineffective for large groups of employees. If poor discipline is widespread, the issue likely lies in the situation itself, and the solution should focus on correcting that, rather than disciplining employees. 11. In determining the nature and degree of disciplinary action that is made necessary by some improper act of an employee, the intent should be considered. 12. Discipline should be constructive. It should show the offender how to correct his errors and give him willing and actions to improve rather than feeling bitter and resentful. 13. Except in cases of extremely serious offenses, no disciplinary action should be permitted to take place until the supervisor has actually talked the situation over with the employee. 14. Discipline should not be administered on an entirely routine basis. Each case should be treated individually. We cannot discipline a group to teach a few offenders. 15. Maintain a constant and sincere interest in your people's welfare, on and off the job. This reduces the need for disciplining to a minimum. And lastly, motivation is the secret of good discipline. When a man is sufficiently motivated, discipline will take care of itself. So, to sum everything up, the principle of discipline ensures a fair, respectful, and effective approach to addressing workplace behavior. By implementing these guidelines, we create an environment for growth and professionalism thrive.
So that wraps up our discussion on decision making. We've explored 10 different subchapters under this topic, and hopefully you've learned a lot about making right decisions, especially in the context of project construction management. Once again, we are Group 2. Thank you for watching.